to take witness statements from Rohingya refugees, which were then made available to international legal teams and used in international legal matters for the Rohingya. The report back for that project is entitled "They Ran for Their Lives" and has been submitted to the UN. During the 2017 genocide, more than 350 Rohingya villages were razed to the ground, and with them, many historical buildings were destroyed. If not properly recorded, the history of those demolished villages will be lost forever. Our history project focused on training Rohingya youth to document the oral history of the villages their communities were forced to flee during the genocide. For our winter school project in 2018, we collaborated with members of the Rohingya Community Development Campaign, the RCDC, to organize a winter school for 100 Rohingya adults in Cox's Bazar, Bangladesh. Over the years, we have briefed trade unions and various institutions, addressed seminars and talks with schools, organizations, and universities. We have organized protests and film screenings, written articles, and assisted those addressing groups, including Parliament and the Foreign Ministry on the issue. We are periodically interviewed by students writing their thesis and have advised two authors for their books prior to publishing. We also advise activists on how to plan and execute their Rohingya projects and fundraisers for our own projects. We often provide analysis to the media on the Rohingya issue. Our annual social media awareness campaign is called #BlackForRohingya. It was initially led on the 5th of July, 2013, but it was moved to 13th of June from 2014 onwards to commemorate those Rohingya who were massacred in Arakan state in the second week of June in 2012. I'd like to also thank Mujahid Safuddin, who, with all his years of experience and many awards, kindly agreed to curate this exhibition for Protect the Rohingya. To the speakers who join us today to shed light on the Rohingya issues, to the Library of Things We Forgot to Remember for hosting this event and the exhibition for the next month, to the caterers from Exquisite Halal and the Nomad Coffee crew for being here today, to Salam Media for the live broadcast and for always speaking about the Rohingya, to Laika Hussain and Fazana Adam for your support, for your continued support, to all of you for joining us here today to commemorate the genocide. We hope that you will go back and educate your friends and family about the Rohingya, and even bring them along to this month to see the exhibition. I would like to now call Kitu Gwangwa for the Library of Things We Forgot, from the Library of Things We Forgot to Remember, to briefly introduce the space to you. Thank you.
Just click it. I don't. I will not. Welcome, everyone, to the Library of Things We Forgot to Remember. I'm Kitu Gwangwa, and among other things, I'm the librarian for the space, a space for the collection of BIPOC liberation heritage from around the world. Artist, activist, and philosopher Kudzanai Churai founded this space for the active engagement of archive, a space for discussion and the elevation of movements in the peripheral view of mainstream media. Just 2 seconds. This becomes then an appropriate place to host this work. It was when activist, journalist, and advocate Shabnam Mayed walked into the space to inquire about the possibility of collaborating on this exhibition. A very important conversation we had on how the two narratives of the space would coexist whether people would be able to differentiate between the two installations. I invite you to not only come to this launch, but when the space isn't set up for this prestigious event, this living room narrates both the space where resistant movements were planned in many countries across the continent and the diaspora. But for the Rohingya people, it stands to represent the homes that they lost. The Library of Things we forgot to remember, that a genocide could be one of them. What we truly gun for ultimately is the ability to raise multitudes of resources dedicated towards the abolishment of the atrocities we know escalate daily. But if nothing else, we aim to create impactful awareness. Protect the Rohingya is still an organization with a handful of volunteers who have put this work together by funds that they have been able to raise, by reaching into their own pockets as well. And these earrings are one of the fundraising opportunities made by the women of the refugee camp. So please support them by purchasing a pair for yourself or for someone else. But please, let's not forget to remember the Rohingya. Thank you.
For those of you who are new to our Rohingya, I'd like to go. Welcome. Our co-founder and advocate Shadan Maya.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for being here with us today. So, for those of you who don't know, the Rohingya are considered the world's most persecuted minority. And they've been going through this genocide since 1978. And it continues in waves. In 1982, their citizenship was revoked entirely. In the early 90s, there was another exodus, again in 2012, 2016, and of course, we all know about 2017. But the coup in 2021 has caused further issues for the Rohingya because apart from the fact that the people of Myanmar are taking to the streets, putting their lives on the line every day, saying they don't want a military government, what has also happened is that the Rohingya have become stuck between the ethnic armed forces and the Myanmar military. And so again, just this week, we're hearing about more atrocities, more Rohingya trying to leave, and the situation is really dire. So this is one event of many events around the world today to commemorate the 7th anniversary of the Rohingya genocide. And I know none of us can forget those images, that we saw of hundreds of thousands of Rohingya streaming into Bangladesh, carrying their parents. And we often ask ourselves, but if you had 5 minutes to leave the house, what would you take from a place where you lived for 800 years? I've learned from Rohingya brothers and sisters that you take your certificates and you take your citizenship documents. And you try to take anything valuable, including jewelry, so you'll be able to pay your way, across. So we're very thankful that you're here today. And I'm just going to do quick introductions. Andrew Day is actually a Canadian activist who spent years along the Myanmar-Bangladesh border with his wife, Liz Mize, and they actually worked to develop aid projects. And you'll see his profile at the start when you walk in the door. And he has very kindly worked with us over the past 12 years to produce an ebook and human rights reports. And this time around, he sent us these photos that he took in 2014. And so that is the exhibition that you're watching today. And the pictures that you see at the back, we had a teacher, a Rohingya teacher, who actually sent them to us by post from Myanmar in 2014. These were the actual drawings of her class. And you'll see in some of them the extreme details of what the children remember going through in their country. So with that, we're going to show you a short video that Andrew sent for us today. And then we have 2 more speakers, and then it's over to all of you.
Hello, friends and collaborators of South Africa's Protect the Rohingya movement. From Eastern Canada, my name is Andrew Day, and I'm an activist who has spent a few years in Bangladesh and Cox's Bazar, the refugee areas, where Rohingya have been fleeing over the past few decades, fleeing the genocide in Rakhine or Arakan state. I've been collaborating with South Africa's Protect the Rohingya for over a decade now, and we've published works together and have always shared a collaborative mind and good relationship. And with that in mind, when I was asked to contribute to help commemorate genocide, I hesitated. And the reason I hesitate is the world now has changed a lot from the time when I was on the ground on the front lines, we'll say. And at that time, with technology not being the same as it is now, and far less collaborative efforts were in place to elevate the voices of those living in makeshift refugee camps or registered refugee camps, internally displaced camps. It was near impossible at that time, and I was one of the many people who visited the area and tried to raise awareness of the cause as outsiders looking in. I always said I was often like an outsider, just trying to peer through the gates. And if anyone has ever visited this area in the past decade or so, they could probably understand what I mean by that, with all of the restrictions and of movement and restrictions to aid that even exists today. And back when we were there, say 2014, there was a lot of restrictions in movement, a lot of restrictions in aid. There, nobody could do very much, and it was the idea that we can commemorate a genocide while a genocide is ongoing and intensifying and worsening. I wondered to myself, how can I present anything from my experiences that could possibly mean anything to anyone? Ultimately, I agreed to be a part of this project, and I did so out of the respect I have of the organization, and also to pay homage to the many activists around the world who supported our work and supported as complete strangers who collaborated and worked together for a common goal, and to pay homage to all of the amazing locals from Bangladesh, who many of them risked their freedoms at the time, and lost some freedom, some of them, in order to take in a community of vulnerable people. So please, when you observe these photos and these stories, if you could just be mindful that as we commemorate the genocide and we commemorate the violence and the exodus of 2017, there was one in 2013, there was one 1991. It goes back and back and back, and it comes in cycles, and each time there's an escalation of violence and exodus. The world temporarily, even if we're lucky, the world temporarily gazes at the Rohingya and then quickly turns away, and that's the cycle that we've seen over the years, over and over and over again. Be mindful also that these photos were taken at a time when the only word that was getting out there was the words of outsiders looking in. And in that sense, there is hope. We've seen collaborations and a new energy to preserve and celebrate the Rohingya culture through many different works of art and photography and storytelling, and I very much encourage everyone, if they're learning about the Rohingya for the first time or wants to learn more, engage with all of these things, because the genocide, the lives lost, the overwhelming amount of souls that are just languishing without any ability to make a better lives for themselves or their families based on their circumstances that are out of their control. We need to do what we can to help celebrate and preserve their culture, because if we don't, what's left, really? Keep playing this one.
Sarah is now playing for us an aerial view video of the
It's also long. Yeah, it's fine.
living in which is the world's largest refugee camp. I'm just going to introduce our next speaker. Dr. Tilla Kessler is the cluster lead for international justice at the SALJ. He holds a PhD in public international law. He worked as a researcher to the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of Namibia and was an ad hoc researcher at the Democratic Governance and Rights Unit and part of the United Nations Assistant to the Khmer Rouge trials. He also supported the International Crimes and Accountability Program at the European Center for Constitutional and Human Rights. And today he's here to share with us some good news. Last month, he was part of a team that was granted an order setting aside permits that were granted by the National Conventional Arms Control Committee to facilitate arms transfers to Myanmar. So it's over to you.
Thanks so much. Sorry. Just go ahead. Did I just put this in my pocket? Hello, everyone. Thanks so much, Shabna, for having me here. I will speak a little bit about that litigation that we started today. I won't bore you with legal technicalities. I will just speak about the order and a little bit about the litigation that we had over the years. So this was a case about permits by the authorities to facilitating arms exports from South Africa to Myanmar. So that was the key, the core of the case, so to say. And we filed that case many years ago, actually, in 2022, I think it was. And that case was only filed after a long back and forth correspondence with the authorities about the situation in Myanmar. So unfortunately, it took a while until we got an order, but our application was mostly about putting all the evidence about the situation in Myanmar and that correlating to South Africa's statements on the international plane, where South African representatives actually expressed concern about the situation in Myanmar and that they were condemning the situation in Myanmar and what the authorities are doing. So we put that on one side and then compared it to the other side in our papers. When we looked at the special rapporteur reports, what they were saying, that there are reasonable grounds to believe that genocide has been committed. That was in 2018, 2017, went throughout the years. And also we put that in relation to the ICC investigation, of course, and the case at the International Court of Justice. So that was basically the fact sheet that we were working from. And what many might not know, I also didn't know before I worked in the area of arms exports, South Africa is actually quite a strict arms export regime and regulatory framework. So South Africa is not allowed to export arms to a country that's systematically, for instance, committing human rights violations. That's only one of these criteria. And that's we of course like that was the basis of our application in that matter. And then we filed the application, and unfortunately or fortunately the state never opposed our application. So that's why we only had an order at the end of last month. And the order is actually stating that with respect to Myanmar, it's setting aside the latest arms export permits in 2021. Those are permits that South Africa had granted or authorized after the coup. So they were only authorized, according to our knowledge, in the last quarter of 2021, so months after the coup actually had happened. Those permits were set aside, but the order is also suspending or declaring that the what's called the National Conventional Arms Control Committee, that's the committee that's deciding over these permits, that committee now has an obligation to suspend all permits if those permits are facilitating arms transfers to countries like Myanmar, a country that went through a military coup and unconstitutional change, or if, like also in Myanmar, if there are reports by UN special rapporteurs or other UN independent experts that international crimes are being committed in their country. So both these criteria apply to Myanmar. And beside the, I don't want to go into too much technicalities, but beside the export permits, there's a different kind of permits that are more long-term that are facilitating these kind of arms export permits. So we expect the committee in charge now, of course, to suspend those permits as well. So that's basically the order. And why does this matter? Of course, it's like factory or immediately it suspends these permits. But also, I think, clarifies the state's obligations in terms of arms exports to not only Myanmar, but any country, like countries in the conflict in Yemen over the years, where South Africa is exporting arms to, and other countries that are on the arms export list of South Africa. So what we are trying to, of course, to clarify and like hope that the state will follow that order, and so it doesn't create this double standard where we actually are championing and standing up for human rights and international law in the situation of Palestine, but in other situations we apply a different standard or double standard, whatever you want to call it, and so that the state actually applies its foreign policy consistently. I mean, the president in his inauguration speech and the Minister of DIRCO, they both reiterated now in the last weeks and months that their foreign policy is guided by human rights and international law. So the order is just a reflection of that, and hopefully the state authorities which are who are engaged in these arms exports will follow suit. So that's basically just an overview. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Tella. We're very happy that you could be here with us today, and kindly from the next speaker as well. Yeah. So now I'm going to introduce our last speaker, Atiya Khan. He's a journalist. and a DJ, a researcher, and a crate digger, originally from Johannesburg but based in Cape Town. For the past 16 years, she has documented arts and culture in South Africa, and her work has been published in major publications in South Africa and abroad. Common themes in her work focus on topics like spatial justice, untold stories of apartheid, jazz history, and underground art movements. And today, she's here to tell you all about a Rohingya music initiative that we're all very excited about. So I'm going to call Atia.
Hi, everyone. Hopefully you can all hear me correctly. I'm going to try and project because I know the sound in the space is a bit tricky. So I'm very happy to be here. I was in Cape Town, not expecting to be here and hoping that I would probably tune in via online or whatever. And thanks to Shabnam and Mariam and the great people behind Protect the Rohingya, they got me over. So I'm very happy to be home. So I'm a journalist. I work as a freelancer within specifically covering arts and culture in South Africa, but I also work with sound and sound in terms of protest, sound in terms of resistance. And so I think, you know, when we speak about genocide at the moment, everybody will be talking about Palestine. And it feels weird and it feels wrong to be comparing genocides. It really feels like it completely tears me apart to think that one can be better or more popular than another one. But when you say the word Rohingya, most people don't know what you're talking about, and I think it's okay to admit that. So how do we raise awareness to a place and a people that are enduring something that that is not getting any kind of, even though there is coverage, it's not really getting a lot of people rallying behind it. There has been, if you look online, there's consistently been coverage. There are documentaries. It's not like it hasn't been covered, but why does it not come up? We talk about Sudan, we talk about Congo, but then also we have to think about what do we mean when we say genocide. So essentially what I'm doing for this exhibition, or what I've been invited to do by Shabnam and the group, is to create a sound piece of music called Tarana music, which is basically folk music from the region. And basically, it opened up a whole new world in terms of accessing how people are dealing with this genocide, how they're dealing with displacement. So you find that we're gonna, instead of me talking about it, I mean, yes, I'm a music journalist, but the best thing is to hear the sound rather than talk about it. A lot of the Taranga are, I mean, the Rohingya are Muslim, but they have a very strong musical tradition that is connected to some Sufi traditions in their sound. Some are like ghazals, some people might know what that is. Some are more devotional types of music. And what I found is that there's a YouTube channel called the Rohingya Memorial Center, which has done excellent work. I think it was funded by the UN. They've done excellent work into going into different refugee camps and just putting a camera down and filming musicians playing. So what you don't get, like a lot of indigenous or folk music, you don't get albums, you don't get record labels. It's not music that was necessarily recorded for the radio. It's recorded as tradition. It's recorded to pass down stories from elders. So it's recorded as part of ancestry. So basically what you have is musicians holding mostly just one instrument and three of them sitting on the floor and they're singing. And what they're singing is not often very poetic. It's like very straight to the point. Our land was taken away. We were left with nothing, you know, like, so what this YouTube channel has done is recorded these people over a few years with, and they've added translations. So if you wanted to access the sounds, you can find it. And so for me, it was a treasure trove because I was like, oh, I didn't know that I was going to find this. And I didn't know about the music until Shabnam told me about it. So basically for today, we're gonna play a small video now to give you an idea of what I'm talking about. Then we're gonna go into some voice notes. After the voice notes, I'll be playing over the speakers as you walk around. I'll be playing some of the music that will go into this final mix. Or when I say mix, you can think about it as a podcast or radio show. So that mix will have interviews, it will have contextualization. So that's a thing, that's like a link that you can get. We'll pass it on through the collective. You'll find it online. Anybody can access it anywhere in the world. And the idea is so that the people in the refugee camps can access it too. So and take on what we understand through the sound of this genocide. And also to talk about this group that's been rallying for 10 years, 12 years. So yeah, it's very niche content, but now that you guys know, you can spread it. So if you can hit the lights, this is one of the videos that I'll be, one of the songs that I'll be including in the mix. It's one of the more poetic ones. It's really beautiful because, yeah, you'll see. You'll probably be able to see the lyrics as well.
Doshadar Poshilam Padadar Muka, Washia Sheman, Yeshia Shilbuka. Doshadar Pati Poshi, Doshadar Poshilam Padadar Muka, Washia Sheman, Yeshia Shilbuka. And time of Corona is for Muka, Patiar dalam tu, Corona doia, Arlopiar dalam tu kota, Jakun kota, Lopiar dalam tu kota, Jakun kota. Ola kota, Patiar dalam, Lopiar dalam tu kota. Lopiar dalam tu kota tidak boleh. Patiar dalam urina mari mula Lopiar dalam tidak boleh. Patiar dalam urina mari mula Diga Lopiar dalam utela gesto. Diga Lopiar dalam Are Mudbaro?
Yeah. Okay. I think it's, hold on, I just want to say something. Okay, you can, so, why is it so bad? So just to say, it's easier to, hold on. It's easier to, hold on. Like instead of me, I feel like what the music does is that it humanizes the struggle. We can sit here and talk about 40,000 women were raped, there's so many people were killed, so many people displaced. But what sound does is not only does it bring people together, but it also humanizes because they're talking about what they went through in their own words and their own stories. And there's, as I said, there's hundreds of these online. So all you need to do is just get started and you find out. And so for me, it's been a very amazing exercise to learn and see how many women there are, how many old instruments there are, what kind of stories they carry, and how they talk about their pain and they sing to comfort each other. So yeah, so we're going to play, I'm going to hand over to Shabnam now. Can you just disconnect
Before
that?
we play the voice notes, what we've done is also done it later and connecting fundraising workshop down to the camp to have South African delegation show us how it is. And if you really like Chitu's earrings, they are made, there's our mother over there. We have a handful left, and they made by women from the Rohingya Development Women's Network. So we have some of those on sale, we also have snacks and coffee, and we hope that you will engage with the children's artwork and with Andrew's photos, and you will speak to each other about the Rohingya. And I just want you to know that this is one of many events around the world today happening at the same time to commemorate this genocide. So we are so very, very thankful that all of you made the time to be here with us today. Thank you. So all of these activists are Rohingya in the diaspora. So from the European Rohingya Council, from the Free Rohingya Coalition, and from the Burmese Rohingya Organization in the UK. And of course, they were all very engaged in events today, so they were very kind to send us these voice notes. And then also we'll be incorporating them. Salam Media will be playing all of them, so you can find them online later, and you'll also be able to find Atia's mix later.
Hello, this is Nathan Ray, a Rohingya activist and co-founder of the Free Rohingya. It has now been 7 years since the massive violence against the Rohingya took place in Rakhine State, Myanmar. The crime committed by the Myanmar military against the Rohingya amounted to genocide. More than 1 million refugee and genocide survivors are now living in camps in Cox's Bazar, Bangladesh, under dire conditions, limited access to education and healthcare, and relying on ration from the World Food Program, which are insufficient to meet their needs. The most crucial issue for them is justice. They all deserve justice. However, despite some cases being brought to international court, the process is slow, and the Myanmar military continue to enjoy impunity. What is worse is that until recently, the Myanmar military was the sole perpetrator. But now the Arakan army, which claimed to be fighting for greater autonomy from the Myanmar military, has begun an additional perpetrator against us. The Arakan army has killed at least 2,500 Rohingya in the past few months, and just at the beginning of this month, over 200 Rohingya were massacred. The root cause of the problem is that those who commit this crime enjoy impunity. As the international community continue to fail us, the criminal who commit this atrocity against us keep doing so because there is no proper action from the international community. In 2017, 10,000 of men, women, children, and the elderly were killed, raped, and tortured. Nearly 400 villages were burned. We must remember and honor them every year. We should not forget what happened to our people, and we must remind the world of the justice we deserve. That is the most important reason we need to tragedy every year.
This is Dr. Ambia Parveen. This is Dr. Ambia Parveen, the current chairperson of the European Rohingya Council, ERC, and one of the co-founders of Rohingya Medics Organization, RMO. World solidarity on this day for the survivors of the Rohingya genocide, from an individual or from a community or from a nation, embodies a powerful message of unity, compassion, and shared responsibility. It signifies that the pain and suffering endured by our people, Rohingya, are not isolated incidents, but rather a global concern that demands collective action and support. Your solidarity means to us a lot, to our community, which fosters a sense of hope, a belief that they are not alone in their fight for justice, dignity, and the right to live. Moreover, world solidarity translates into a practical support, whether through humanitarian aid, political advocacy, or efforts aimed at ensuring accountability for those responsible for atrocities that the Rohingya has been suffering for decades and became the people of nowhere. Thank you.
I'm Tunkin. I'm president of Burmese Rohingya organization UK.
Systematic oppression in our homeland for many years. But 7 years ago, on this day, the world witnessed unspeakable atrocities committed against us. Today marks 7 years since this tragedy, a day that carries the weight of a painful history. On that day, the Myanmar military, along with Rakhine civilians, burned hundreds of villages. Villages our ancestors built with their blood and sweat. Our homes where our souls existed were burned to ashes. Thousands of sacred buildings, including mosques and religious schools, were destroyed. Our properties and savings of a lifetime were seized in an instant. Many of our mothers and sisters were brutally raped. Thousands, including children, pregnant women, and the elderly, were mercilessly killed. Moreover, nearly 1 million people were forcibly expelled from our homeland to a life of destitution as beggars overnight. Our dignity, dreams, futures, hopes, and existence were all ruthlessly destroyed, and the whole community was shattered under the banner of genocide and ethnic cleansing. We will never forget those who were unjustly killed. We must commemorate this annual day to let future generations know what horrors we suffered and continue to suffer. Recently, we faced another horrific tragedy. In 2017, we faced only the attacks of the Myanmar military. Today, we face attacks from both the military and the Arakan army. Both groups share a common intention, wiping the Rohingya out of the country. Today, we commemorate this Rohingya Genocide Remembrance Day with whatever little strength we have left, hoping that no other living beings in the future will ever have to face the same tragedy as us, learning from the genocide we experienced. Let me tell you a hard truth. Unfortunately, both the hidden and the open fires of genocide are still burning. And we, the Rohingya, are smoldering in it. Thank you.
I'm Tunkin. I'm president of Burmese Rohingya organization UK. I'm a Rohingya born and brought up in Arkan State, western part of Burma. Our organization is doing advocacy around the world. We filed a case in Argentina, universal jurisdiction case. Recently, prosecutor from Argentinian court submitted arrest warrant to the court, and we are waiting arrest warrant from the court now. Justice and accountability is very important, and we are working on it. And as you all know, today we are having 7th anniversary of Genocide Remembrance Day, where thousands of Rohingya people were killed by Burmese military, thousands of Rohingya women were raped, many children were thrown to the fire while military burning 390 villages in northern part of Arkan State. Our people are still facing genocide until today. Recently, many Rohingya were killed by Arkan army and also Burmese military. We are targeted by both military, where the fighting is escalating with Burmese military and Arkan army. And we really need your support and solidarity to continue to fight against Burmese military and to get justice. And one thing is Rohingyas are one of the major indigenous people of Burma, where we are many people are fighting against Burmese military. We want to be inclusive. Future Federal Union, Rohingya should have equal rights like other nationalities of Burma. Same time, 1 million people Rohingya must return to their original place. We're still waiting for the case from ICJ, which filed by Gambia. We express many thanks to Gambia government and people of Gambia. We express many thanks to Bangladesh, who is hosting 1 million Rohingya people. So I would like to pass the message that is very important. International community must not forget Rohingya community where they are still facing genocide. Now 600,000 Rohingya left out of 3 million. Rohingyas are still facing genocide. International community must intervene, must support justice and accountability, must intervene to protect Rohingya people where their lives are at risk. Recently, by Arkan Army, at least 2,000 Rohingya people were killed in Butidong Township and Maundo. More than 300 people were killed, artillery attack and drone attacks. And many people were capsized while they flee into Bangladesh by capsize, So it is very important. We need your support, your solidarity continuously and until to ending this genocide. Thank you so much for all your support and solidarity with the Rohingya people. I believe you will continue your support and solidarity to get justice for the Rohingya people of Burma. Thank you so much.
Exhibition is around, it's food.